They begged for help from their windows, and the city watched them burn. It was just past midnight on a Sunday, September 2nd, 1666. London was still blanketed in silence. Most of the city was asleep, crammed into narrow, leaning timber homes, their wooden walls dried out from a brutal summer. It had barely rained in weeks. The air was thick, hot, and dry, like something was waiting to ignite. And then it did. In a small bakery on Pudding Lane, owned by a man named Thomas Farriner, a fire started. It wasn't anything dramatic at first, maybe just a spark, a dropped ember, a mistake no one saw coming. But in a city packed with flammable buildings stacked against each other like dominoes, one small flame was all it took. The fire spread fast, incredibly fast. Within an hour, the bakery was engulfed. Flames crawled up the walls, jumped rooftops, and burst through windows like they were chasing something. The wind picked up and turned the blaze into a hungry monster, pushing it deeper into the city. Houses groaned, cracked, and collapsed under the heat. Sparks flew like fireflies, setting nearby buildings alight. The streets were narrow, cramped, and made the fire stronger. There was nowhere for it to go but forward. People woke up to screams and smoke. Chaos broke out. There were no fire trucks, no water hoses, no real fire brigade. London wasn't ready for this. The best they had were leather buckets, hand pumps, and fire hooks to pull down buildings. It wasn't enough. Families poured into the streets, some half-dressed, some barefoot, all of them panicked. They carried what they could: blankets, furniture, Bibles, anything they could grab in a hurry. Parents clutched children, neighbors shouted warnings. Some tried to fight the flames themselves, throwing buckets of water from wells or the river, but it didn't matter. The fire was too strong. By dawn, the sky over London was black with smoke. The Lord Mayor, Thomas Bloodworth, was called to assess the situation. He looked at the fire, shrugged, and reportedly said, "Pish. A woman might piss it out." That comment would haunt him for the rest of his life. It was a massive miscalculation. Instead of ordering buildings torn down to make fire breaks, one of the few strategies that might have worked, he hesitated. Maybe he feared the backlash from wealthy property owners. Maybe he didn't grasp the scale of what was happening. Whatever the reason, his delay gave the fire more time. By late morning, it was completely out of control. The fire reached the Thames River, and warehouses along the docks exploded, barrels of oil, tar, and alcohol fueling the inferno. Flames leaped across the water, setting fire to boats and structures on the other side. People ran to the river, desperate to escape. Some climbed aboard small boats, pushing off into thick, smoky water. Others stayed behind, hoping the wind would shift or the fire would stop on its own. It didn't. The wind blew hard from the east, feeding the flames. Roofs collapsed like they were made of paper. Walls melted into rubble. There was a low, terrifying sound, like a deep growl beneath the city. Buildings dying one by one. Church bells melted. Stone cracked from the heat. Entire neighborhoods disappeared in hours. People didn't just lose homes. They lost their sense of safety, their connection to the city, everything that tied them to a life they'd spent years building. Some stood in the streets watching the fire swallow their homes, too stunned to move. Others tried to save pets or animals, or even buried family members by digging up graves. There was a feeling of helplessness that soaked into everything. Londoners weren't just afraid, they were devastated. The fire moved west. It tore through Fish Street, then Lombard Street, then on toward Cheapside, one of the city's busiest markets. The air filled with the stench of burning cloth, leather, spices, and human fear. Flames licked up shop signs and banners, symbols of trade and identity turning to ash. And still, no one really knew what to do. King Charles II finally stepped in. He sent the Royal Guard and sailors from the Navy to start tearing down homes and shops. They used gunpowder to blow up buildings in the fire's path, creating empty space to slow the spread. But the work was dangerous and slow, and the fire was already ahead of them. That night, as the fire raged into its second day, people huddled outside the city walls, watching the skyline burn. The glow lit up the night like a second sun. It was beautiful in the worst possible way. Some prayed, others cried, many sat in silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. London had seen fires before, but nothing like this. The smell of smoke clung to everything. Ash floated through the air like dirty snow. Horses whinnied and panicked. Children coughed. Mothers whispered stories to keep them calm, pretending it was just a bad dream. But there was no waking up from this. In the distance, buildings exploded. Fire turned into sound, booming, cracking, screaming. And every time someone thought the worst was over, the wind shifted, and the flames found new ground to consume. By the end of the second day, it was clear this wasn't just a fire. It was a disaster, and the city, for all its wealth and power, was completely unprepared. Tomorrow they'd face the ruins, but tonight, London burned